Hi, welcome back to Wild Wealth Optimization Workshops. Here with Scott Collier, the Call Dog. Excited to be talking about all kinds of different investment principles this week. Some key points that we want you to be aware of. When you're building wealth, when you're saving long-term for retirement, certain principles apply that we've talked about around the markets, around dollar cost averaging, around the rule of 72, that growth is very important. Now, when you get into spending money, you still may have a long time horizon, so growth may still be important. However, we do need to be cautious. There's something called the retirement risk zone that we'll touch on again, but something very important when we're in capital depletion. So when that's income phase, when we're spending money. So this is a topic that we will touch on again. But with capital depletion, the key is, will it last as long as you do? Will your money last as long as you need it to when it comes to things like retirement or other purposes that you might have had for that money? Because there's some principles to understand when it comes to depleting your assets, spending your assets, that's different than when you're just saving and accumulating assets. So, one key, longevity risk. What do we mean by longevity risk? The risk of living too long. Sounds like a good risk, okay? But it's not a lot of fun, as we say, to live to be 92 if you run out of money when you're 78. So we have to make sure that we keep that in mind. So sometimes we need to look at some investment options where we have guaranteed income streams. So we will touch on those topics as we go along here to make sure you don't outlive your money. One risk is inflation risk, right? And we talk about the rule of 72, you remember that one, the rule of 72? Right, how long it takes your money to double. Understand when it comes to inflation, this rule of 72 applies in reverse when it comes to your purchasing power. So, for example, if you retired and you were going to get $3,000 a month in income, if that was adequate for you and that's what you wanted to receive, you're going to get $3,000 a month. If it is not indexed to adjust with inflation, could you live the next year with 3% less money if, say, inflation was 3%? Nowadays it's more like 2% range. Sure, you'd be okay. The problem, though, going back to that rule of 72, is if you live 20, 30, 35 years in retirement like some people do, your purchasing power will be eroded dramatically. All right, so even if inflation was averaging 3%, that means every 24 years you will have half as much money to purchase things with because of the impacts of inflation. So just be aware of that. And then market risks. The market volatility and investment fluctuations in the market matter far more when you're in capital depletion spending phase versus when you are in accumulation savings phase. Why? Okay, we talked about dollar cost averaging. Beautiful concept. Put $100 a month away, $200, whatever it is. And when the markets are cheap, you'll buy more units. When the markets are expensive, you'll buy less. Works out beautiful. Beauty when you're saving. When you're spending, not so much. Dollar cost averaging is not good for you in depletion spending phase. Why? Something called the sequence of returns matters far more. So as an example, if one investment account was averaging 7% because every single year it got 7, 7, 7, which doesn't happen, by the way, but let's say it did. Another account averaged 7%, but it was like a positive 21%, then it was a 7, then it was a negative 14%. This other account averaged 7, but reverse. First year was negative 14, then it was 7, then it was plus 21, and those kept repeating. They all averaged 7, so when we're in savings phase, it wouldn't matter so much. You were averaging the same rate of return. But when you are spending money, it matters astronomically. The guys with the big returns early in spending phase, maybe that money lasts till they're 93 years old now. But this other one here where the big negatives happened early, might have run out of money, same amount of money at 81. So what am I saying? That trying to time the markets is very dangerous when you are in the retirement risk zone and when you are in spending phase around your retirement. Because if you have bad markets early in retirement versus strong markets early, it could devastate versus have very positive impacts on what your returns look like. So you need different investment strategies that we're going to talk more about, but I want you to be aware of this because sometimes things that were fantastic in savings, not so good when it comes to market volatility in retirement, inflation risks in retirement, and of course your longevity risks. Hope that makes sense. We'll touch more on these ideas. Talk more soon.